All right. So, welcome everyone. Brisbane Azure User Group. If you're just here for the beer and pizza, this is the time to just take that and go. But if you're interested in Azure, we've got a session here for you tonight. So welcome everyone who hasn't been here before. Welcome, and returning people, welcome again. So, sorry.
Just click on it and then click on the screen for it, and then.
All right. So this is being recorded, including that stuff up that I just made. And we're in October, I hope, because this is the news for October. Before we get into that, a big thank you out there to our sponsors. So Codify for the beer, pizza, wonderful enjoyment that we're having here, and Microsoft for the venue. So thank you very much for our sponsors. They're amazing. And for the people online, come in person. You can get beer and pizza. Doesn't cost you that much more. It's a community event, so we want to get people involved. If you've got something to share, we'd love to hear from you. We've got a full calendar at the moment, but going into the new year, plenty of opportunities. So if you've got a story, your experiences, we really just want to hear about how you're using Azure. Doesn't have to be the latest and greatest at all. Very much. We just want to hear about what you're doing with Azure. So feel free to let us know. So Dan or myself, we've got an email there that really appreciate you dropping an email, letting us know, get involved. It's a great thing to do. Before we get on with the main event, just a couple of updates that we've got. Just a few that I thought were okay. Sorry, that's a big word. Like a lot of big mouthful there. Sorry. So site recovery. So now support for Azure Trusted Launch VMs for Linux OS has gone into preview. The Windows stuff was already there, but this is just expanding upon that. Logic App Standard now has low-code document parsing and chunking. So you're getting those documents and you're wanting to send it off to AI or anything like that. This is now a low-code experience that can then take those documents, chunk it up, and send it away. Java on container apps. So big news. I was involved with people that were doing Spring apps, which is a great service on Azure, but that's all over now. So we're all into container apps now. The Java's being supported on container apps, and there's a bunch of Spring Cloud services that you can now spin up on container apps. If you're doing Java development, this is a great option. A lot easier than Kubernetes, by the way. Azure Web Pub Sub MQTT support. So this is for that real time, building a chat app and that sort of stuff. So new protocol, we've gone into public preview for this. It's a great feature if you want that real time interaction to be happening. Azure AKS, when's there a meetup without AKS updates? They just seem to keep rolling through. Lots of stuff here. Not even going to read them out. It's just a lot of stuff. Virtual machine node pool support's gone into preview. Long-term support for the versions, and we got FIPS mutability support. So that's getting on that sort of more secure workload. Great. Azure Functions. We got .NET 9 support in the Linux plan. So for all those people who are doing .NET, who's a developer here? One person. .NET developer. Oh, a couple of people there too afraid to shout. Shout it to the world. Yeah, for all those people who are tracking .NET 9, Azure Functions. We can now have a look at that. App Service extended support for PHP 8.1. A bit of a chart there that you can have a look at that's sort of showing you the life cycles of the versions. Azure Confidential VMs with NVIDIA H100 Tensor Core GPUs. Lots of words, fancy machines. So they've come in. You can now leverage that. Application gateway for containers, gRPC, and fronted mutual TLS. So that's building on the last couple of sessions. We've had increased security coming through. It's just building on top of that, mutual TLS. So for those people who's working with containers, actually. Two scared people that don't want to put their hands up, and Bernie, who's leading the way. Okay, that's cool. So Azure Cache for Redis, smaller enterprise tier. If you didn't want to get into the full thing, now you've got a smaller option to dip your toes in the water. PostgreSQL, single server to flexible server migration. That's now available. You can see there's a whole bunch of sources or migrating into the Azure database for PostgreSQL flexible server. And on the same topic, we've got some additional versions that are now supported. PowerShell 7.4. Who's PowerShell? Well, there's actually more people than developers. That's good.
When you said .NET developer, they wonder if they counted.
Well, if you do PowerShell, you're not a developer. Don't worry, we're clearing that up.
Oh, God.
Azure SQL database hyperscale. So if you've got a lot of databases, this now allows you to paste the same image in twice. So ignore that slide or the image on that slide. So that's a
I've got the images.
One fails. So you can hyperscale. You can now have a bunch of servers. You can optimize your utilization, save money. Who doesn't like saving money? IoT Edge. We've got a few new versions. So Ubuntu, Debian, and Yocto. Oh, I've never used Yocto. I'm sorry. Has anyone ever used it? Nobody.
That's the first time I've seen that word written.
Yeah. Oh, whoa, we got somebody. Okay. You, sir, can. All right. So before we get on to the main event, a couple of resources. So Slack, YouTube. Dan doesn't like how fast I skip through this stuff, but he's really slowed it down for me. And some training slides. We've got some blogs that are pretty cool. Have a look at them. And tonight, without any further ado, I want to introduce you to a long-time member of the Azure community here, Wayne Hoggett. He's senior author at Pluralsight, lots of other things, lots of courses, and he's always here to help this community. So welcome, Wayne.
Well, right, where'd that come from?
Made it all up.
Yeah.
Deny it all.
Do you think extra one? Yeah. Oh, use your space there. Okay. All right. So from here, at least there's one slide I can skip over, which is the About Me slide. Okay. Yeah, so tonight I'm here to talk about Azure tools you might not have heard of, and some you probably have heard of. That's just the nature of how these things work. Now, I'm focusing on tools that are like community tools. They're not being made by Microsoft employees, or they might be maintained by Microsoft employees, but they're really a community tool. They're not, officially supported by Microsoft, but they're designed to make your life a little bit easier when you work with Azure. And I've been collecting these over a long period of time, and I've compiled a list, and we're going to go through that list tonight. I've got a couple of demos, very short demos, because last time I did demos here was a complete disaster. So, and I've even got little reminders to tell me when to do a demo, because my brain is an absolute sieve. So let's get started.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about PS.doc? Because if you can, put some pressure on that author to start supporting Bicep, that'd be great.
What is PS.doc?
I don't know. You may not have heard of it.
No, I may not have. Yeah. if we can skip past the about me because we all know who I am. But one thing, basically, I create courses. I do Pluralsight all day, every day. But one other thing that I do, I've got Lucas over here. He's from Upper Ground, formerly Hudson, and I run hackathons with him and the team at Hudson, focusing on Azure and DevOps technologies. We just did one on Terraform. Prior to that, we did one on DevOps and Kubernetes. Yeah, now we're talking. And we're going to do one on Bicep before the year end. So connect with Lucas on LinkedIn if you want to get involved in those hackathons. Essentially, they're like challenges. I give you a series of challenges and you've got to work your way through them. So that's what that's about. Let's look at some of the Azure tools you can use to get the latest news. Azure Charts is the first one I've got here. If you haven't heard of Azure Charts before, I've got little icons here. Because like I said, I've got the memory of a goldfish to remind me that like, go to that website and show them that website. So Azure Charts, it goes offline more often than I wish it did. But essentially what Azure Charts is like a news aggregation site and like just a treasure trove of Microsoft information about Azure. So the main thing that I use it for is keeping up to date with different Microsoft products using the Azure heat map. So you can go in here and like take a look. And I'll just zoom this in. Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Actually, we'll go back to 125, I think. It'll be fine. And then you can just click on one of these services and get the latest news that's happened. So if I just pick virtual machines, for example, we can see what's happened with virtual machines over the last 6 months. And if you're working with a particular technology, this is a really great way to keep up to date with that technology. The other thing that I often use it for is the SLA part, and then where you can quickly check the SLA of a Microsoft product. So you want to see, if your solution is going to meet the SLA that you're targeting for your solution. This is a great place to go to check that. And the other one that I find kind of useful is the previews, these boards here. So previews, general availability and deprecations. So you can keep track on what's coming, what's going in Azure using this tool. So that's the first one. Azure Feeds is another great place to get your news. So essentially, Azure Feeds is like created by Luke Murray, who I think is a Kiwi, so fairly local. And yep. And it basically aggregates a bunch of Azure blogs into one place. So if you're looking for a homepage to use that isn't the Bing homepage, yeah, this is probably a better option potentially. Aggregates a whole bunch of Azure blogs into one place. And I find that website quite useful. Next one, AZ Advertiser. So if you haven't heard of AZ Advertiser before, essentially it's another treasure trove of information, but this time focusing on governance, role-based access control. So essentially, what you can use AZ Advertiser for is to keep up to date with changes that are happening to policies and initiatives, or policy sets, if you want to call them that, and also changes to Azure roles, like new roles coming in, roles being modified by Microsoft, so that the permissions that they've got assigned to them being changed. And if we take a look at policy, for example, you can then go in here and search by name, and the filtering capabilities are really powerful as well. So say we wanted to search for container, for example, because everyone loves containers, and maybe we want to search for privileged containers. Oops. Yeah. And you can see policies that are associated with that. And say, for example here, we don't want to allow privilege escalation on our containers in our Kubernetes cluster, because that would be bad. You could see the versions of that policy. So that's currently in preview, capabilities that are allowed for that. But what I find really useful, is it going to come up here? Yeah. No, it's not coming up there now. But I'll scroll down because that's a community one. I actually wanted the built-in one. Here it is here. This built-in one is the one I was looking for. It also shows you which initiatives, that's what these policy sets are here, which initiatives they're a part of. And then you could potentially use the initiative. Maybe the initiative has other policies that you'd be interested in implementing as well. And you can take a look at the initiative instead. But so much information here. I think you can see the version history here. And then if you were to click on one of these, it would take you into like a detailed change log and like a ridiculous amount of information on Azure policy. So it's similar for the roles as well. So AZ Advertiser is an awesome site. Moving on, I've got a few of these to get through, so I'm going to power through them fairly quickly. Places to get your links. So if you haven't heard of aka search.net, anyone's in the aka.ms links, aka.ms/blah. This is basically a list of all of those in one place that everyone knows of. It's like a community contributed version of aka.ms. So say you wanted to find some links on Azure landing zones, you can just search for ALZ. If you wanted to find some on CAF, or Cloud Adoption Framework, you could search for those and then use those links in any documents or presentations or anything you might be doing, instead of using the ridiculously long link that you get instead of the aka.ms link. That's kind of cool. Yeah. Oh, what have I done here? I've gone to the wrong thing. I'll minimize this. That's what I need to do. There we go. Command.ms is kind of similar as well. So this essentially gives you short links for different Microsoft websites. So en.cmd.ms will take you to Entra. And you can even get a browser extension where, like if I go to a new tab here, I think I can type C. That's not going to work. Anyways, I had trouble with the browser extension earlier today when I was trying to test that to prove that demo would work, and it wouldn't work. But you can get a browser extension, and then it gives you a quick way to access these websites without remembering the ridiculously long URLs for some of these websites. So another awesome resource. msportals.io is another one, and there's a couple of websites that I didn't really know existed until fairly recently, kind of embarrassingly. And I really wish I knew about these a long time ago, but there's a massive list of different Microsoft portals here. But one of my favorites more recently, oops, if I go release candidate. So the Microsoft Azure Release Candidate portal, I don't know if anyone's seen this particular one before. I didn't know this was public, but this is like changes coming to the Azure portal. So how would you explain, Bernie, do you reckon? Release candidate, there's release candidate and there's preview. And I don't know which one's more new and which one's more old.
Yeah, I would say that the release candidate's earlier in the chain.
Yeah, okay. I think this is the juiciest one too, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty well just UI changes really for the most part. So,
yeah.
Yeah, if they're making changes to the UI, and especially if they blogged about it and things like that, then there might be like more recently a pretty major change that was made was collapsing the navigation pane on the left-hand side of the blade. So for those types of changes, you could have sort of previewed this early. Right?
Yeah, so it's kind of cool, and there's a whole list of other Microsoft portals here. So like a massive list here that you can go through to find different Microsoft portals. So that's that website. Now, community calls. I actually love community calls, and I don't know how many people are aware of community calls, but essentially Microsoft runs these. They sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, different time, but they run them fairly frequently. And I tend to miss most of them because I'm doing dad things or it's just bad timing, like it's the middle of the night or something. But I always end up watching the recordings of these because these are full of useful information. And if you do get to attend one, it's a way for you to engage directly with a Microsoft product team. So you can speak directly to the Bicep team or directly to the Terraform team within Microsoft through a Teams call. And they have Q&A sessions. They give you the latest news on what's happening in these different products and stuff. So if you ever get a chance to attend a community call, you can sign up using the links that I've got here. And I'll provide all these links after the talk as well on every single link that I've got here. I guarantee you'll find useful information in these community calls if you're using any of these technologies. And there would be others that I'm not aware of as well. These are just the ones that I'm familiar with. So yeah, definitely get on the community calls. I couldn't not mention the WellArchitected Framework. Like it has to be in there. So everyone in this room has now heard of the WellArchitected Framework. They know the pillars. Well, they will know the pillars when they click that link. I'm not going to go to that link, but the WellArchitected Framework is basically guidance so you can build awesome solutions in Azure. That's what it's all about, that align with Microsoft best practices. So I want to make sure everyone in the room is aware of that. Same for the Cloud Adoption Framework. Cloud Adoption Framework is about getting value out of your Azure investment. So getting the business on board and then giving you guidance on how to implement Azure and get value for your business out of that. And Azure Landing Zones is part of that. It's part of the ready phase of the Cloud Adoption Framework. So I want to make sure everyone is aware of both Azure Landing Zones and the Cloud Adoption Framework. Training. So I couldn't not mention Pluralsight. Come on, like I had to mention it. So we have a free tier at Pluralsight. 50 courses are always free. There's some fairly technical ones in there, and there's also some fairly beginner ones as well. So check out the free tier if you're interested in finding out more about Pluralsight. Now, another one that's worth mentioning here is Cloudly. You might not have heard of Cloudly, but we have like a really good bunch of people working both in Brisbane and in Australia on Azure. Cloudly is a great example of that. It's run by James Lee, who is formerly a Pluralsight author as well. And he was one of the reasons I actually joined A Cloud Guru that became Pluralsight and started training, because I wanted to train like him. And he has moved on and is now an independent content creator, creating Azure training material for certification exams. He has some free, based in Brisbane, he has some free getting started courses too, one on Azure DevOps and one on Azure that you can check out as well. So as an independent content creator, definitely check him out. Also could not go past training without mentioning John Saville. I'm sure everyone in the room has heard of John Saville. He has awesome content on YouTube, deep dives with whiteboards that go for a very long time, but will tell you everything you need to know about a particular Azure technology. And he's also a Pluralsight author as well. All right. Now, certification exams. Anyone here certified? Like Microsoft Azure certified? How many people do we have? Okay, we've got some. Good. People have some very strong feelings about certification, but I do too. Might not agree with everyone else's. But in the past, when I first started doing certification exams, it was really hard to get like good practice exams, and you had to like measure up like a fortune of money, and then like hope that they'd get an exam that was close to the real thing. Those days are gone. Microsoft now provides like awesome practice exams for free on their website that give you questions that are going to be similar to what you'll see on the exam. And they give you an exam simulator as well, at aka.ms exam demo, where you can actually get into the exam environment before the day comes. So you're not fighting the environment, the exam environment, and the actual knowledge as well. So definitely check out the exam simulator and the free practice exams for a certification if you're interested in getting one.
Can I tell you a funny story about
Yeah.
exam simulation? So when you get certified every 12 months now, you recertify basically. Right? Yeah. So as a bit of an exercise, I took one of the exams I was going to do, and I fed the questions into Copilot.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I only got 68%.
Oh, it's a pass though, right? Yeah. It's good enough.
65% was the pass.
Yeah.
Low. But I was surprised at the answers I was getting by feeding the question into.
Well, were as bad as what they were? Did you expect them to be more accurate?
I expected to get a better result.
Yeah.
But the other scary thing was the answers it gave me, I didn't think were wrong. It's not like they gave me answers that I thought were wrong, but I fed them in anyway. They looked right. I put them in, and they don't tell you which ones you get right or which ones you get wrong. But at the end of it, when I only got 68%, I thought, whoa, Copilot's a bit dodgy.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, those renewals, I tend to just use them as a research tool. So like I fire up the exam, I'm like, oh, I don't know that. So Microsoft Docs, I'll read, okay, right, yeah, cool, next. Yeah. I think that's maybe how they're supposed to be used. Feels like how they're supposed to be used. Because you don't remember everything. You don't work with everything every day. Like there's some random SQL stuff that you're just never going to remember. So I have to look it up every single time I do it. Anyways, building, have to mention Azure Verified modules. They're fairly new, but they're awesome. So they're like building blocks to allow you to build infrastructure as code more easily using Azure. And heaps of work is going into Azure Verified modules. There was a talk like 2 months ago, so I'm not going to do a demo on Azure Verified modules today. But if you go onto our YouTube channel and check out that, you can see the talk on Azure Verified modules. And there's heaps more content coming out around those. Azure Monitor Baseline Alerts, or AMBER, is essentially a framework that allows you to deploy baseline monitoring across your Azure environment. I think it's part of the cloud adoption framework as well, or Azure landing zones. So Microsoft always recommends that you create baseline monitoring for your environment, and then for your really important stuff, create some more sophisticated or more direct monitoring on your really important mission critical stuff. So Azure Monitor Baseline Alerts is about creating that monitoring baseline for your resources. Azure Export for Terraform. There's a lot of work going into Terraform on Azure and infrastructure as code on Azure at the moment. I'm very excited about that. I've got a little spanner here to remind me that I've got a demo here because my brain is a sieve. So we'll take a look at a demo of AZTF Export. Essentially, we all know in Terraform that we can use import blocks to bring our resources into Terraform configuration, and we can generate configuration when we run Terraform plan as well to generate that configuration. If anyone's done that, they probably know that it's not great. It's a bit messy. Azure Terraform, Azure export for Terraform. I think it might have been, is that Terrafy? It might have been Terrafy previously. I'm not sure, but that name wasn't great. It allows you to do a very similar thing, but it allows you to target entire resource groups and generate everything you need to make Terraform work. Let me show you. It's easier if I show you this particular one. So I have a little output directory here. So I'm just gonna, actually, I've got like everything I need to make these demos work. How's it looking now? I might zoom in a little bit. And I don't need that much terminal. That's a little bit too much terminal. So essentially you can just install it with winget, and there are other installation options as well on the link that I had on the slides as well. And then you'll need to update your env or path once you've installed it with winget. Don't ask me why. Does anyone know an easy way to like update your env or path after you install something with winget? With Chocolatey, you can run like a refresh environment command and it works really well, but winget doesn't seem to exist. Anyways, side note. And then essentially log in and then run aztf export. And I'm targeting a resource group here, but you can target in single resources, and you can target using queries as well, using Azure Resource Manager queries as well. So I'll run that here. It does get a little bit flaky in this terminal, so we'll see how we go. And that'll take a little while to run. So I'll jump back to I'll just sign in there. And I'll jump back to the slides while this runs, and then we'll come back and we'll see what we've got. All right, so it's running there. All right, so I'll let that run in the background, and we'll take a look at some other tools for building stuff on Azure. Oh, no, we'll jump on the demos instead. So another Brisbane-based person, David Summers, last time I checked, he works for Data3, creates icons that you can use in your slides and your diagrams that you're doing, if you're doing solution designs or anything like that. He creates SVG and PNG format images of all of the Azure resources, and you can download them all from this GitHub to use in your Visio diagrams or PowerPoints or whatever. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that exists.
As Visio VSS files.
Actually, I don't know.
I stopped them a little while back, and there was third parties really paying, because they needed this.
Yeah.
Microsoft used to provide them.
Yeah.
I actually don't use Visio as much these days as what I used to. I'm mostly go here for the SVGs, but
still a great tool. But
yeah.
The Visio icons now are just in Visio. They're not separate files.
Okay.
So there's Visio icons then, but then separately, there's PNGs and SVGs to download as well. I think still under CAF or WellArchitected somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Visio stuff is just in Visio now. So you need to go to Visio.
Serious? I've never found them in Visio.
Yeah.
No, I didn't either. I had to go out of my way.
There's a couple that are pretty limited.
There's lots of networks, a lot of AD stuff, and
But not the
Azure.
not the Office 365 or Azure icons. I thought.
I looked at that.
All of the new stuff's just not there.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is relatively up to date. I still find this has a couple of icons missing, but it's probably one of the more up to date sources. So definitely check it out if you're interested in getting your icons. Now, Cloud Cloak is kind of a very cool tool. I only very recently found out about this. I've been using an older tool called AZ Mask, which I think was made by a Pluralsight employee. Cloud Cloak essentially masks PII or personally identifiable information and secrets in the Azure portal when you're sharing your screen. So if you're doing custom presentations and stuff like that, and you don't want PII ending up in recordings, Cloud Cloak masks that data. I'll see if I could get a little demo of Cloud Cloak here. Do I have Azure portal open here? Oh yeah, so you can see it working in the top right-hand corner there. So it's masking out my information there. And if I was to go into one of the resources, it would mask more information as well. You can turn it on just here. You can see it's just there. Little on icon there.
So it finds it itself, or do you have to tell it where to look?
It finds it itself on Microsoft like portals, so the Azure portal and Entra portal, and there's a few other supported websites. I think GitHub is another one, and then you can choose what you want to mask. Just in there as well, so you can secrets, whatever you'd like to mask. Weirdly, it masks text boxes as secrets, so when you type something in, it like masks it. Anyways, still being worked on because it had an update recently. This drop down is fairly new, but yeah, that's useful if you're doing any sort of screen sharing. You don't want to end up with PII in a recording somewhere. So that's a very useful tool as well. I'll check and see if that demo is finished. Just see. Okay, yeah, it's importing, so I'll come back to that in a minute. That's AZTF export still running. The Azure Visualiser is another tool. Has anyone heard of the Azure Visualiser before? Yeah, it's kind of cool. Let's go to Visual Studio Code. Essentially, it allows you to generate diagrams from existing Azure infrastructure. So let's see. Oh, yeah, I need to wait for this to finish running, so I'm going to come back to this. Oh no, actually, it's finished running. So let's do the AZTF export first, and then we'll come back to that. So, what AZTF export has done has generated my Terraform configuration in this output directory here for the resource group that I targeted. So we can see I've got my lock file here indicating my Terraform version, and then I've got additional JSON data here, and then I've got my Terraform files, including my Terraform state, and it's set up my resources for me as well. And like they're not perfect, but they're pretty good. Like that's pretty good Terraform from a generated tool. So if I run Terraform state list here, we can see those resources are already in state. So not only do I have the configuration created for me by AZTF export, it's already put them in state for me as well. And if I run Terraform plan, see if we have any changes. Ideally, we want to have all of our resources from that resource group in state and no changes required, which is what we've got. So that's ready to go. That's infrastructure as code, one line. Not perfect, like you'd want to change the names and stuff and use some variables and that sort of thing as your arguments, but it's pretty good. It's even like put the provider in a separate block and stuff for me as well. So it's a pretty nice tool. Definitely check that one out. Let's go to AZViz. Because I forget everything, I've literally got like reminders to like, set the path and everything because my brain is absolute mush. Anyway, so, and I blame Kubernetes for that, by the way. That's why my brain is mush. In case anyone was wondering, it's definitely Kubernetes. Anyway, then you need to install GraphViz as a prerequisite, and then you can install the module, and then essentially connect to your tenant, and then you can export a resource group as a visualization. So I'll just make sure I'm connected here. This probably already am, but I love how this pop-up randomly doesn't appear in the foreground. Like, why is that? Like, why is it there? I don't understand that. But anyway, connect to my account, and then let's export a diagram of an existing resource group here. So we can see targeting two resource groups, actually, a hub and a spoke network, and then setting my theme, and there's some extra parameters here, outputting it as PNG, and then just showing that when it's finished running. Let's run that line. And like, these are not like the most beautiful diagrams you've ever seen, but I think they're pretty good. And you can do SVG format as well if you want something that's a little bit more editable than a PNG. Bitmap? No, not there. GIF. Shall I take a second to run?
What's the output going to be?
It should be an image of two existing resource groups. The dependencies between those and the network links between those resources is what we're expecting to see here. So if you've seen it before, this demo is not that interesting, but if you haven't seen it before, it's actually like pretty cool to get a visual idea of what's going on with a particular, resource group or subscription or anything like that. It's taking its time, so I'm going to jump back to the presentation. Oh, wait, is it going to do it? You do it quickly? Yeah, we're not going to wait. All right, we'll move on. So it's also important to note that you can get diagrams from code as well. So Visual Studio Code can create diagrams from your code if you're using Bicep. And you can also do them in the Azure portal. And actually, there's something else I wanted to show you while I'm here. So if I go into diagrams as code. I just want to make sure everyone knows that there's a visualizer over here that you can use to visualize your bicep diagrams. So we just need to make sure everyone in the room knows that. And that'll, when this is not running, that would show a diagram. Oh, there we go. So here's the AZ Visualiser output. So I just run one command and this is the diagram I got. It's pretty good. Like, that's not bad. It's showing my two, not showing the peering connection, but it is showing, the subnets within my virtual networks and the two resource groups that they're in. So it's not a bad diagram, being produced by one command. Here's the visualizer. So if you've got a bicep document, you can easily visualize that. Can I zoom in here and make this a little bit more useful? Close this. Yeah, so you can see you get the visualizer in Visual Studio Code, which is kind of nice. And if I just grab this ARM template here, you can also get this in the Azure portal. Am I in the release candidate still? Yes, I am. So if you deploy a custom template, this gives you a fairly nice diagram as well, if that is going to work. I'm clicking. There we go. It is a release candidate. And you can build your own template in the editor and then just paste in your JSON here, which you can convert from Bicep if you want to. And then you can visualize that in here as well. Just another option for taking a look at it. And it produces pretty nice diagrams as well when it loads. There we go. So dependencies between all the resources and all that sort of stuff. One thing.
That's much better than VS Code.
Yeah, it's a bit nicer, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. If you want to just show someone, like this is what I'm going to deploy for you, you'd probably use that. Yeah. Now, there is one other thing I wanted to show you as well. If I go into this resource group here, because we're in the release candidate, there's some pretty cool functionality coming that I learned on that community call. So, you can export your templates from here and they come out as JSON previously, like ARM templates. And no one uses that, right? Like, who is still using ARM templates? Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm not bad-mouthing the entire room.
And they never really work.
No, they weren't great. No.
Never works.
Yeah.
You write them properly.
You take out all the errors. Yeah, they do work fairly well. Yeah. But some functionality that's coming to export template is, look at this little thingy here. Notice that one is in the release candidate. That's nice, isn't it? It's a bit better than an ARM template. Doesn't work yet. I think this was meant to come out this month, but I think it's been pushed. So it's coming out a little bit later. But also, this is my favorite one. So that's cool, right? Bicep, awesome. Love Bicep. Generate that from the portal. It will eventually generate. And or because it's a release preview, it'll break. But Terraform, this is my favorite one. Azure RM, I have no problem writing that Terraform configuration. But the AZ API, whenever I need to use something that's new or in preview or isn't provided by the Azure RM provider, I can never work out how to write AZ API Terraform. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just can't do it. So AZ API, it'll also generate that for you, which is awesome. So yeah, it's not working yet. It's still in preview. So look for that in the portal in the coming months, which is awesome. Anyways, now I lost track of. Sorry, I got distracted by that. Oh, diagrams. Okay, that's what we're doing. All right, let's go back. Minimize that as well. All right. Assessing things. So Microsoft Assessments. If you haven't heard of Microsoft Assessments before, it's a website you can go to assess your company's journey on different things. So how well aligned you are with the WellArchitected Framework, how many other assessment tools. Let's take a look at the assessments, browse all available assessments here. Essentially, you answer a bunch of questions and then Microsoft will give you guidance based on how you answered those questions on next steps you can take to get you closer to being aligned with the well-architected framework. So you can see there's heaps here to choose from. Like, are you a good AI engineer? Yeah. Everyone thought I wasn't going to mention AI tonight. I threw it in there. It's in there. But yes,
your presentation was the first one for something like 4 months without AI in the title. So
yeah, I had to put it in the presentation though. I couldn't leave it out. It had to be at least mentioned once. But yeah, so you can do a well-architected review. I think this one's kind of cool. And there's even a go live. I think there's a mission critical go live as well. So definitely check out Microsoft Assessments if you want to see how you're going, how you're going as a DevOps organization. Plenty more here to choose from. I'm not going to go through them all, but you get the idea. It allows you to assess things and get guidance that's catered to how you answered the questions. All right. Skip over that one. No, PS rule for Azure. I'll go back one. PS rule for Azure. creator of PS Rule for Azure at the back of the room there, Bernie. If you haven't heard of PS Rule for Azure, it allows you to, Bernie, what does it allow you to do in one sentence?
Test infrastructure as code, such as bicep.
Yep, early though, right? That's where it's really good, is early in the, it allows you to shift left and test your infrastructure as code before you deploy it. So if you haven't heard of PS Rule for Azure prior to tonight, you now have. Go and check it out. And the creator is in the room if you have any questions. And actually you did a demo quite a while ago now, but you did a pretty good extensive demo on this at the user group. So there'll be a recording available for that. Yeah, if anyone wants to check that out. And PS Rule powers a lot of stuff now. Like it's used in many different, like it's used in Azure Verified modules.
Right.
What else is it? Is it used in other things as well? Azure landing zones, maybe?
A few of the Azure sample galleries and things like that are using it these days. So yeah, there's quite a few Microsoft tooling, particularly from a standards perspective, that then takes advantage. So yeah, I mean, you can obviously consume it from there, but you can also run it within your organization too.
Yeah, in like your DevOps pipeline or something if you want.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can tell it's written by a true developer because it's PS or for PowerShell. All right. Now, if you haven't heard of Mesa before, Mesa is a website that allows you to assess your Entra tenant. For anyone who's not familiar with Entra, that's Azure AD. Your Entra tenant against best practices. So that's pretty much what it is. It runs on Pesta, so it runs on PowerShell, like all good tools, and allows you to test your environment against Microsoft best practices. I have a demo. So essentially what you do is, I'll just set my location so I don't forget that because I always forget it. And then just install the module, and then you install the tests that are available, and you can make your own tests as well if you have like specific things you want to test in your environment against your Entra tenants. And then essentially connect. So once you've installed the tests, you can then connect, and then you can invoke it, and it will provide you with feedback on things you should. And this normally looks much nicer than this. Can I make this look nice? Should say Mesa. Look really awesome, but it's just gobbledygook.
So is that running against a real tenant?
Running against a real tenant, yeah.
So what sort of permissions do you as the user?
Yeah, so it just needs reader access to the tenant.
Like Azure Reader.
Reader and it doesn't need any more privileges than that. I actually thought I wrote that in here somewhere, but it doesn't actually. There's another tool that I run. Oh, I'm going to do a demo on it later. Yeah, there's another tool that I run that actually complains if you have more than reader. It's like, you have more than reader. You need just reader. Mesa doesn't seem to care as much. It's using my identity there. Anyways, I'll let that run in the background and we'll come back to Mesa. The report that it gives you is awesome. Like, this is something you give to management and say, look how good we are. We're doing things the way we're supposed to be doing them. Anyways, moving on. AZ GoVis is the other one that I was just talking about. So this allows you to get really detailed diagrams. Anyone heard of this one before? AZ GoVis allows you to get really detailed diagrams and find problems with your governance in Azure. So in your Entra tenant, your management group hierarchy, your roles and your subscriptions and everything they contain, but with a governance focus. And I've got a little bit of a, I don't have a demo I'll run on that one, but I do have the output from a demo. AZ GoVis, because it takes a little while to run. It's quite extensive. Yeah, so we'll just open up the existing, which I can't run until Mesa's finished running. I could run it in terminal, I suppose. Let's just open this file. Take a look at this. So here we can see it's done. I've got a fairly simple tenant here, but you can see it's got my tenant at the top, my tenant root group, and then the two subscriptions that are in that. And then it looks for things that could be a problem or just gives you information that you might not be aware of. So you can see here I've got a custom policy definition, like actually an initiative that's not being used. So it's just sitting there, like not assigned to anything. So that's an example of a problem. I've got 4 policy assignments that have been deprecated. So that's obviously, oh, Mesa's finished. So this is the report that you get from Mesa. Looks pretty sweet, right? Looks quite nice for one line of PowerShell. And then you can see where you've passed, failed, actually, I unticked the wrong thing there. I want only the failed ones. There we go. So you can see areas where I could improve my Entra tenant. Can I zoom in a little bit? Yeah. So You know, I don't have self-service password reset for administrators enabled. I don't invite, you know, I don't have guest invite restrictions. Everyone in the tenant can invite guests, as an example. My guest user access is potentially too high. All sorts of different things issues that you may have with. I have a lot actually. Lucky this tenant isn't important in any way, but you can see how many tests you've failed or how many tests you've passed. Not quite as extensive as something like Microsoft Defender for Cloud, because where you can add exceptions and exclusions and all that sort of thing to problems. But it runs very quickly and gives you a very fast indication of where you can improve the configuration of your Entra tenant. So that's that. So
You know where those tests come from, or what's it auditing against? Is it Mesa's own kind of?
Yeah, so they actually have where they pull them from. So you can see the list here. They pull them from a range of different Microsoft sources, as far as I'm aware. So testing and I have a list of them, and I didn't memorize them, but you can get a list of which tests are included by default, and you can add your own in as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can customize the list that it runs against them, and even create your own as well.
You show us a test.
Can I show you a test? It'll be written in Pesta. So there, basically, and that's a signature, but here's the test itself here. So it's just a Pesta test. So it runs a test and checks a result. Is something configured the way it should be configured or not? Yeah. All right. What was I doing? I was going to open. We're taking a look at AZ GovVis. That's right. So I don't know why that zoomed out so much, but it's not zoomed in too much. So you can see AZ GovVis gives you, and this would be a lot, like there'd be a lot more information in here if it was, an active tenant. You'd see a lot more potential problems, definitely as well. But you can see all sorts of different potential issues, things that you might not be aware of. It used to be integrated with PS Rule, but that integration is not there now. Different, how many networks I've got. I'm not going to go through them all, but you get an idea. Essentially, it allows you to get if you're working with a new tenant and you just want to see where it's at, it's a great tool to just get like a bird's eye view of how that tenant is configured, like what problems might exist. So that's what that's about.
Interesting.
And then Azure Quick Review. So Azure Quick Review is essentially, it's kind of like PS Rule for Azure, but it runs against resources that have already been deployed and just checks them for best practices, and then gives you a list of potential fixes that you could make to those resources to bring them in line with best practices. And you get a nice Excel spreadsheet from Quick Review. I do have a quick demo of that one, I think. Azure Quick Review. So essentially you can just install it with Winget and then log in, and then you can scan either a subscription, or you can just scan everything that you've got access to, or you can target a specific resource group. Now, I don't know why, but I couldn't get the resource group stuff to work properly. But if you target an entire subscription, it'll give you a whole list of potential issues with that. Just run. I'll see. This might take a little while to run, so we'll see if we can get this to run or not. It's like the account. Oh, it's popped up my login window somewhere else, hasn't it? Where is it? To cancel.
Thought you clicked on it,
Did I? Maybe I did.
but nothing on the screen yet.
Oh. Okay, it's back. Oh, it actually did something weird there.
It's just AI.
Yeah. What are you doing? Okay, that's good, but it's got presenter view still. Okay, we're back to normal. That really confused me for a second. Okay, so yeah, Quick Review is now scanning. Essentially what you get is an Excel file. So it's very business friendly, this particular tool. Everyone loves to get their reports in Excel, and gives you a list of improvements you might like to make to bring your resources in line with Microsoft best practices. I'll let that run and we'll come back to that. I'm not even sure how much I've got more to cover, but we'll see. We already covered these. So I think, naming. We do have some more. We do have some more stuff to cover. Naming things. The most important thing of everyone who works in infrastructure is naming things. So if you haven't heard of the Azure periodic table before, this is like a really quick tool that I use to get like a really like friendly name for a resource. So let's take a look at that one quickly. I'll zoom in a little bit. So here's all the elements, and we've got the dangerous ones as well, and the radioactive elements as well. But so you could search for, say you wanted to search for AKS, for example, there gives you like a prefix you can use for that resource, and then the naming convention, any requirements that that particular naming that resource has, you know, like what it can contain and can't contain, the scope of that particular thing, and then also some samples in Terraform, Bicep, and even an ARM template if you want to hurt yourself. So yeah, periodic table is a pretty cool resource.
Can you create a rule or something where you generate all use all 63 characters?
Definitely use all 63 characters. Yeah. Yeah, do not stop until you hit a limit. Like if it doesn't, if you can still type, keep typing. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, if I need like a quick name, you know, like I want to use a name that's like friendly and I'm in a like dev test environment or whatever, or just doing a demo, a periodic table is awesome for that. Or just grabbing some sample code for a resource. It's really good for that. And these use the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework naming as well. So yeah, that's cool. For a more robust solution for naming things, they've got the Azure naming tool. Anyone heard of the Azure naming tool before? So it's essentially a container you can run that allows you to set up a naming convention within your organization and then allow people to generate names using the naming convention that you've defined. So that's what that is. I have a little demo of that one, I think. Let's see. Oh yeah, so you can have a look at the installation options at their website, but the easiest way to get it up and running is, of course, with app service. Yes, it's the only way to run anything. Let's see if it loads.
It'd be faster if it was Kubernetes.
Oh, guaranteed, guaranteed. It'd be auto scaling now, like and just delivering. Anyway, so through configuration here, you can set up your naming convention. And this is relatively complicated, but you can choose which components you're going to have in your naming convention, and then which delimiters you'll allow in your naming convention. And then for these components, like the environment, the location, and all this sort of thing, you can define what your environments might be. So like production sandbox, you know, that people can actually use in their names. And then functions within your organization, which I've taken out. That's why mine's blank. Different locations. So you can say people can only generate resource names for different regions, like specific regions in Azure. We're not going to, I've allowed some West US ones for preview stuff, but we're only going to allow them to generate names in Australian regions. And then any project and apps that you might have. And then here you can actually take a look at configuring the specific names or the way the names will be generated for the specific Azure resources. So you can pick your resource type and then pick the particular resource. Oh, wait there. Resource. Sorry. Pick your resource provider. So compute, for example, and then you could pick like virtual machines. So if I can find it here, like a Windows VM, for example, the most important Azure resource there is, and then the prefix, and then you can. I thought I could click on that, but I'm not able to click on that. I think this list is just ridiculously long. Oh yeah. Sorry. Whenever I saw someone else is scrolling a screen and I'm looking at it, I get like motion sickness and I feel like I'm going to throw up. So I apologize for that. Just search for VM again. Thought I could actually pick that, but it's not working for me.
It wasn't motion sickness until you said that.
I'm sorry. But anyways, here you can configure the resource types and then essentially you can generate names using the conventions that you've got. So non-admins can go in and generate names here. And it does have an API as well, which I haven't played with yet. But the idea of the API is that you can put this into like your CI/CD pipeline and have names generated for you as part of your infrastructure as code. So that's kind of useful, that tool, if you haven't heard of that one before. If you just want to get rid of that, what should I call it question in your organization, it's probably a tool worth looking at. So people can just go and generate their names themselves and not have to come and ask anyone for a name for things.
How do you guarantee against conflicts? Those are the name already exists or something. Is that,
Yeah, the idea it doesn't actually guarantee against conflicts. The idea is that you would generate conventions enough that would make them unique. And I don't think it does store a list of generated names as well. But I haven't tried to generate the same name twice to see what
Can
it
it
does.
do increments like -01, -02?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it has an like an integer or instance, I think it's called.
Surely your Python code should generate your name.
This tool is worth checking out if you're interested in making sure you have consistent naming across your Azure infrastructure, and everyone should. I think that's it. That's all I had. Done.
So, your URLs was your last slide.
Yeah, of course. I'll provide a list of these as well.
That's GitHub.
Yeah, via GitHub. Yeah. But yeah, I have a very early start in the morning, so I wanted to blast through that. I've got a US team, and they are not on the West Coast, so so we blasted through that. Hopefully, someone found something useful in that presentation, some tool that they can make use of.
that graphic, you haven't really explained what you do with the brush though.
The brush, just mask any mistakes.
Oh,
That's what you do. Yeah, to brush over them. Yeah.
action. I know what to do with the hammer.
Yeah. The hammer is how I build things. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, great job.
Thank
Wayne.
you.
That was really awesome.
Well, it's good.
Thanks.
And you already know you know that.
I have done that, yeah.
Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
putting
Appreciate it.
together.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
My friends appreciate this because I'm not a drinker. I always say, who would like something? Yeah. That's what we last time. I know the first time we did it, we like virtually passed. You virtually passed.
Through the
Something. Yeah,
screen, yes.
and it appeared as Pepsi on my side.
That's right.
COVID, it did wonders. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming tonight and braving the weather. Definitely, we do have our meetup next month. I'm trying to remember who it is next month. It's not.
It's not Adam.
It's not Adam. It's December. No, we have somebody in November.
I did see it.
Yeah.
And I apologize. It's like
I think it definitely had AI in the title.
Yeah, probably. We did. Yep. So we definitely. Yep. We got it.
If it didn't, we'll fix that.
Yeah, it has to go there.
Okay. And just as a favor to Microsoft, if you brought a bottle or anything in, could you bring it out? That would be awesome. That helps.
Just empty your beer on.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
So you. Yeah, thanks.